Läsprov i engelska för årskurs 9. Vårterminen 2013.
Det låter som en telefonsvarare.
American Voices. You're going to get information about a very special project and listen to some recordings from different parts of America. The recordings are divided into shorter parts. After each part, there are some questions. You can write while you're listening, but you will be given time to answer the questions after each part. Your answers must be in English. When answering questions with alternatives, choose one alternative only. A, B, C, or D. Listen carefully. You'll hear each of the parts only once. First, we'll get a short introduction about the project. Now, read the first two questions. Questions 1 and 2. Do that now, please. Ready? Let's listen.
We're going to hear about a very interesting project that was founded by Dave Isay, who used to be a radio documentary producer for many years, but now dedicates all his time to his project. The idea behind the project is simple. Isay's company builds comfortable, soundproof booths where you can bring your grandmother, your aunt, your friend, anyone you choose to talk to about his or her life. You can make an interview with the help of an assistant who will suggest questions and support you during the interview. When you're finished, you walk away with a broadcast quality CD, and, if you give your permission, a second copy goes to the American Folk Life Center at the Library of Congress. Someday, your great-great-grandchildren will be able to visit this archive and listen to your voice. Dave Isay believes that our stories, the stories of everyday people, are as interesting and important as the nonsense we get about celebrities 24 hours a day from all corners of the world.
Answer questions 1 and 2. Do that now, please. Now, read questions 3 and 4, please. Ready? Let's listen to Dave Isay.
Hello, I'm Dave Isay, founder of StoryCorps. In October 2003, StoryCorps opened its first recording booth at Grand Central Terminal in New York City. Since then, we've launched mobile recording booths that travel the country, collecting stories in cities and towns nationwide. We've recorded more than 10,000 interviews so far, and I'm going to share just a few of them with you here. On this CD, we'll hear stories about home and family, work and sacrifice, stories of personal journeys, and moments in history. These stories show what can happen when you ask the simple question, tell me about your life.
Now, answer questions 3 and 4, please. Ready? Let's go on to the next part. Read questions 5 to 7, please. Okay, let's listen.
Monica Mayer grew up on the Fort Berthold Reservation in Newtown, North Dakota. That's where she recorded her interview in 2006. Here she remembers a lesson she and her sisters learned about hard work.
My father, he was full-blood German, and my mother was full-blood Indian, and, you know, it was pretty tough in the 60s growing up, you know, half-breed, so to speak. And I must have been about 7th grade, 8th grade, and I wasn't doing well in school. And I'm the oldest of 3 girls, so our dad packed us up in his pickup, took us out to his old homestead land, which is about 18 miles north of Newtown, in the middle of nowhere. And he packed us some lunches and some water. All 3 of us girls dropped us off out there at 7 or 8 in the morning, and said he wanted all the rocks picked in the northwest corner in one big pile, and that he'd come back that night to pick us up. And it better be done.
Please answer questions 5 to 7. Okay. Now read questions 8 and 9, please. Let's listen to Monica again.
So there we were, working hard all day long. He comes back and we're dirty, stinky, sweaty, sore muscles, crying. We must have been a sight to see. And my dad pulls up in his pickup, and I looked at him and I said, since I was the oldest, my 2 younger sisters are like hiding behind me. Dad, we don't think this is fair. We have to work this hard. And I just remember him saying, is that right? Well, do you think I like working hard like this every day? No. He said, you know, your mother said you girls don't like school and you're not doing very well. And we decided that you're going to come out here and work like this so your hind ends will get used to how your life's going to be when you get older. So I said, well, if we got good grades, do we have to come out here and work this hard? And he said, no, that's the deal. Well, you didn't have to bust my head twice up against the brick wall, but my 2 younger sisters and I were laughing about that because they remember that particular day exactly the way I remembered it. One day of hard labor changed everything.
After receiving her medical degree, Monica Mayer returned to the reservation, where she is now a family doctor. Her sisters, Holly and Renee, also work there, one in nursing, the other in social services.
Answer questions 8 and 9, please. All right. Before we listen to the next part, read questions 10 and 11, please. Let's listen.
Joyce Butler came to StoryCorps to remember her mother, Dot Kelly. During World War II, Dot was raising 4 children on her own. Here, Joyce recalls the sacrifices that her mother made for her kids.
After the divorce, there wasn't much money. So my mother worked in a laundry and different places, and she finally got a job at Montgomery Ward's department store. And these young women would come in all dressed in these big boots and these kind of rough overalls, and they would have checks of $600 to cash. And she finally asked one of them, "Where do you work that you make so much money?" And they said, "In the shipyard." So my mother went over, and the man who interviewed her said, "Did she want to be a welder or a burner?" And my mother said, "Which pays the most?" And he said, "A welder." And she said, "That's what I want to do." And he said, "Oh, mercenary, huh?" And she said, "No, I have 4 children to take care of."
Now, answer questions 10 and 11, please. All right. Now, read questions 12 and 13, please. Let's listen again.
It was bitter cold in the winter going into the bowels of those steel ships. They had to wiggle into narrow crawl spaces and lay on their backs and weld overhead. And I remember her neck and her chest here, all spotted with burn marks from the sparks. And her shift was midnight to 6 a.m., so she could be home with us during the day. I remember her dressing in the heavy clothing, men's clothing. Once she fell and hurt her ankle and they brought her home in the middle of the night, and she was weeping. I remember that. After the shipyard closed, she needed to have 2 jobs to make enough money. And we kids were more or less on our own, and that was not a happy time. But still, she was determined to keep us together as a family.
Now, answer questions 12 and 13, please.